I am your host, Lia Dunlap, and you are listening to the Oracle on Purpose podcast, where we help intentional leaders clarify their purpose and next steps to create a work and life of significance. I'm your host, Lia Dunlap. Today, I am honored to bring a fellow movement maker, brilliant leader, and master connector to our show. My guest today is Micaela Passeri, and she is an award-winning emotional intelligence and business performance expert, an international speaker, author, and founder of the Love You Revolution emotional and business mastery training programs. With over 20 years of experience building 6- and 7-figure businesses, Micaela puts her business degree and many certifications to use by transforming high-achieving entrepreneurial women from stuck, stagnant, and unfulfilled to happy, liberated, hopeful, and healed. Her work identifying releasing the trapped emotions that prevent success and freedom has helped hundreds of clients boost self-confidence, tap into inner wisdom, increase productivity, banish anxiety and demotivation, cure business stagnation, and monetize their business to 6 figures. Trained in NLP, MER, and emotion code, she's also the founder of the Love You Revolution clothing line and current regional director for the Global Women Club, Los Angeles. Thank you so much. Welcome to the show, Micaela.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for pronouncing my name correctly.
Well, as someone whose name is a little different, I can appreciate how important it is to have your name said correctly.
Yeah.
And I did, admittedly, I did have to practice because I do honor that, and I want to make sure that we give you that honor. So one of the things that many of my clients know is that I am an intuitive business architect, and I focus on helping people to understand their unique life purpose and how that ties into their business genius so that they can actually have that fulfillment. So, I'm curious, in your own business and the work that you do, how do you find alignment with your purpose and business genius in your work?
Well, that is a really great question. And one of the processes that I have a lot of my clients do when I work with them is an introspective questioning on really what do they love? What makes them happy, right? What do they feel is their purpose? And so a long time ago when I took myself through that process, the answer for me was to make people happy. To really help people. And so for me, the alignment is when I'm doing the work that I'm doing, if I'm helping people and I'm making them happy, then that's where the alignment comes into, right? And so it's helping them, maybe it's helping them figure out how to structure their business, or maybe it's helping them figure out what's blocking them to get to the next level, or maybe it's just figuring out how they can set themselves free from some of the emotional baggage that, unbeknownst to them, they're still holding on to. So whatever that is, if it's bringing them to feeling better about themselves and being more happy, then that's the alignment.
I love it. And I think that one of the things I want to ask, because maybe some people out there aren't familiar with the term, like emotional intelligence or EQ. So can you tell us a little bit more about that for those people that term or that idea might be new to, so they can understand kind of where you do your best work?
Yeah, absolutely. So emotional intelligence is actually a fairly new term. It is gaining popularity just because of the benefits that human beings have by raising their emotional intelligence. And so basically what emotional intelligence is really the ability to self-regulate and self-manage, right? So it's ability to become really self-aware, which really means, you know who you are, you know why you do the things you do, you know why you think the way you do, you know why you make the decisions that you do, you know your patterns, right? You're constantly in that introspective and inquisitive questioning of yourself as to, okay, what does this mean? What's underneath this? What lesson am I supposed to learn? Like that's that constant inquisition, so to speak, right? So that's the self-awareness. And then in that, it's really understanding how then to regulate oneself and manage oneself. So instead of reacting to life, reacting to the emotional surges that we get as we're experiencing life, we're responding. And we're responding from a grounded place, we're responding from a loving place, we're responding from a place that serves us and the greater good. So we're responding so that it creates a win-win.
Yes. And that's a good point, and it's something that I talk about a lot here is that when we're doing our purpose, we're on purpose, we have a chance or a better chance to really positively impact the world. So I'm curious, like one of the things that I've come to understand over 25 years is that, just like success leaves clues, so does our purpose. So tell me, how did you come to this work? And as you look back in your youth and growing up, what signs were there along the way that this was really what you were meant to be doing?
Well, there were no signs along the way in my youth. Let me first preface that. In fact, I would say probably up until, think about this, probably up until my late 20s, I was like really kind of wondering, well, what I felt like, well, how do I find out what my purpose is? Well, how do I find out what I'm meant to do, right? So I did have, just like everybody else, that kind of searching time for what it is that I was meant to do. It wasn't until, I really started delving into personal development and really finding out how I ticked, like who I was, so it was my own introspective journey coming out of some negative events, some negatively charged emotional events, and really finding, okay, this isn't how I want to feel. I don't want to live life this way. I know that there's more to life. I know that life isn't meant to be this way. And for me, it was like, I literally felt like like Linus and Snoopy, right? Like I had a black cloud over me. I had felt that throughout my teenage years and my 20s, but it became even more apparent and in my face in my 30s. And so it was really that desire to like, okay, I don't want to feel this way. I know there's something better, and I just need to figure it out and find out how that is. And it started with me, started taking a look at myself. And so that introspective journey, that questioning, doing a lot of personal work, a lot of inner work, shedding a lot of the emotional baggage that I still had tied around to a lot of events in my life, a lot of very defining moments in my life, like, my father dying in a horrible car accident in Bulgaria when I was 20, a very bad relationship with the father of my daughter in my 30s, a lot of things where I was holding on to shame, betrayal, guilt, failure. I was holding on to all these negative emotions that really weren't serving me, and that was keeping me down. And so my emotional intelligence, my emotional vibration was very low because I had no self-esteem, no confidence. I really felt inadequate, really. I felt really inadequate. And so through that inner work, I was able to make peace with it, heal it, and then raise my emotional vibration and my emotional intelligence so that then once I really figured out, I started consuming even more, more content.
That's interesting that you're tapping into the action of obviously looking within and being part of this, but recognizing how your emotional intelligence can, what I'm hearing is like there's this also retroactive experience of like releasing things from your past. So it's not just about like moving forward, but it sounds also like there's a lot of release that happens in this work. Is that true?
Yeah, there is. And there's kind of two different parts to emotional intelligence, the way that I see it. There's the scientific kind of brain part of emotional intelligence that a lot of like leadership trainings, communication trainings, all of that, like executive trainings use, because there's a lot of science that connects the brain to a lot of this work, right? And then there's the energy part. There's the inner work, which is more of the work that I focus on. I really focus on the energy, releasing the emotions, and the healing aspect of someone's life experience. So there's those two kind of parts of it, and then they intertwine together.
Great,
right? Because then there are tools and strategies on the scientific side that combined with the release and the making peace, right, and the healing, then create, a force, an even greater force for evolution, for personal evolution.
Wonderful. Do you find that there's a big piece of that has to be involved in that is like the release and also like that forgiveness piece? I heard you say like there was the guilt and things and the shame. Do
Oh,
you see
yeah.
forgiveness as a big part of what you do? I sense
Oh,
that that's part of
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's forgiveness. It's self-forgiveness first, and then forgiveness for others, self-compassion. I know in my journey, I had a lot of hatred for myself. I had a lot of, it wasn't really hatred. Let me rephrase that. It was judgment. It was judgment and anger, right? And so I had to bring compassion to that part of myself that made the mistakes, that made the decisions that got me into trouble, right? That maybe failed, right? So it's self-forgiveness, self-compassion, it's grace. It's bringing grace. It's like, okay, you know, a lot of my clients are business owners, and so it's like they beat themselves up a lot. And I know you work with business owners as well, so I'm
Yes.
sure you have this experience. You know, they beat themselves up a lot, and then they measure themselves up to these expectations that sometimes, you know, are a bit high. And so every time somebody goes into that conversation, right, connecting them to perfectionism, it's like, okay, wait a minute, let's just bring grace. Because, you know, you're going to do what you're going to do, and then you're going to recommit to do better next time.
Absolutely.
Give yourself the
Yeah,
grace.
that's such a great point. And, you know, there's this piece where it's, you know, I've had clients before, and I'm sure you've seen this as well, where, you know, they could have like, even like, a huge win in a week and one bad email or one bad phone call. And when you check
Throw
in
them
with
up.
them, it's like, that's all they're talking about. Like, it's like,
Mhm.
wow, you know, it's really interesting, as you said, that we can get kind of myopic about that piece. And it's like, but wait, there's so much more about what you're doing right that you're not really
Because
celebrating. Yeah.
we're our own worst critics, right? And I
So,
can say that because I am my own worst critic. I know that. And so I've had to make peace with, and so for me, for example, I call that part of myself bitch because she gets bitchy, you know? And so I had to make peace with that part of myself and understanding that she was born out of protection, out of trying to protect me. And so even
right.
though sometimes she'll show up as bitchy, as ultra critical and all that, I get to then appease her so that she doesn't take over like maybe she used to.
Right. I think
Right?
that's such a great thing. Like when people talk about like the ego and the id, especially in regards to the ego, it's like you forget that it is there. Like the role of it is that protection role. We don't always recognize that that's where that's coming from. And if you can go a little deeper to find out what it is you're trying to protect yourself from and deal with that, then you can let go of that. And, you know, it
And then
becomes,
create huge opening.
yeah, you create space for the possibility to be different. And it sounds like there are some fundamental things about emotional intelligence. I know we kind of talked about this before we got on the call, like some cornerstones. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And before I do that, I just wanted to say one thing. One of my biggest breakthroughs was when I realized that that dynamic of that part of me, and I was able to really have compassion, right? Is have that self-compassion.
Right.
So compassion is a big element. Yeah, so you know, people always ask me, say, well, how do you do that? How do you, you know, how do you uh, make peace? How do you get over it? How do you let go? You know, um, so there's four cornerstones to emotional intelligence. Number one is that self-awareness, right? So you are recognizing the experience that you're having, right? And in the recognition of the experience that you're having, you're recognizing the emotion that has taken over, right? So, for example, let's say I just got into a fight with my daughter, right? So then in the moment, I could, you know, say, okay, I'm experiencing anger right now, right? Now, I want to preface that right now I'm giving it to you as steps, but eventually when you practice this, it becomes a split second.
Gotcha.
So initially, might seem like an efforting, but eventually it becomes a split second. So in that realization that you're experiencing anger, right, then you're like, okay, well, what's that about? What's underneath it, right? So that's
Mm,
the second cornerstone is understanding. right? So you're experiencing your experience, then you understand why you're having the experience, right? So what's the trigger? What's underneath it? Maybe what's the lesson? And then from there, the third cornerstone is, okay, once you understand it, so you acknowledge it and understand it, now you can manage it. And that's the self-management, self-regulation part. So instead of reacting, you can respond. So maybe it's taking a breath. Maybe it's walking outside of the door, coming back when you've collected your thoughts. Maybe it's going to meditate. Whatever it is for you, you take that moment to figure out how you're going to manage yourself. So instead of going, deep down into the emotional roller coaster, right? So you're managing your emotion. And then the fourth cornerstone is then you use it. Use it for your benefit. Now, this is where I always want to preface. I'm not talking about manipulation. I'm talking about empowerment. So you use it to your benefit to empower yourself to not only create a win-win for you, but to create a win-win for everybody. So you're creating a win-win for every side or party involved. Does that make sense?
Can you tell us more? Yeah. Can you tell us more about how that, in that example, how that might look?
Like with my daughter?
Yeah. In that particular example, I mean, I think that's, I work with a lot of women, many of them are moms. So I know there's a lot of people out there that have that, have probably had a conversation or argument with their child.
Yes, absolutely. So it could be that in the moment, so like for me, what happens for me is I will, and I've gotten a lot better, but I'll feel that surge of either impatience, aggravation, sometimes disrespect, right? So then I'll take a moment to breathe, and in the noticing of that wanting to react, I'll take that breath, and then I'll make sure that instead of maybe yelling or being forceful, I'm using a matter-of-fact tone. So my tone of voice is just like, okay, I asked you to feed the dogs. Can you feed the dogs, please? Instead of saying, you know what, I asked you to feed the dogs, right? Which I have done in the past, but as you practice, right? And so it's just coming down to that, okay, so what happens with that? When I'm having that awareness and I'm managing myself and bring myself to that just matter-of-fact tone, we don't get into the altercation of going back and forth or me yelling and her, please don't yell. Why are you yelling at me? All that, right?
Right. That's
all that interaction. And so then it's and then she'll go to okay, maybe I'll have to say something like, well, I've asked you 3 times, this is the 4th time that I've asked you, can you please do it? Okay, and then she'll go do it.
Right.
Well,
yeah.
We were butting heads.
Yeah. And I think that's such an interesting piece is as in one of the powers of practicing this is because I'm always talking about energy. We as human beings are so blessed with this soul and this energy that we have, to waste it in areas like that when we could be focusing it on what we were meant to be doing here in our purpose, right? We have energy resources, and to use it to have those explosions is somewhat wasteful. So it's interesting to see by pulling that back, the diffusing actually helps you to retain your own energy instead of expel it. And then of course, as you're saying, it also mitigates that kind of cycle of 2 forces coming at each other, right? I love that. I think that's fantastic.
And we're both stubborn, so then it gets into a power struggle, a power match. And then at the end of the day, the result is that our relationship is a lot better.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. I think that's fantastic. So tell me really quickly, as you're looking at this work that you do, we just tapped into some especially interpersonal relationship. It certainly is helpful. How do you see it playing? Because I know you have, you have a big vision for the world in the work that you do. So tell me about what is your big vision for the work that you're doing in the world?
Yeah. So, because I know where I was and I know where I'm at now, I know the misery that I lived in, and the amazing, confidence, happiness, abundance, and just, feeling good about myself that I live in now. I want that for everybody. And for me, really, what in a word is I was able to set myself free. So my vision for the world is for women and men to be fully self-expressed in who they are. So knowing who they are, right? So they can be free of their emotional challenges and their emotional baggage and create the life that they want. You know, the life that I live now, I've created it. I've manifested it.
Yeah.
By design.
But there's a sense of being,
right?
yeah, there's an empowerment in knowing
There's
that
empowerment that I'm in control. Well, before, I didn't think I was in control. I was a victim to life. Life happened to me. When I shifted and when I did the work, it was like, no. I'm in control. I get to create the life that I want.
Yes.
Right?
Oh my gosh, that's such a great line. I say oftentimes to my clients, remember, life doesn't happen to you. Life happens through you. And that's this other piece of this is like, and you can, as you said, make that look the way you want. You have that power, especially when you are, in control of your emotional intelligence. I am so glad that you were here to share this. If you had, I'm going to give you this last minute to share and give the final thoughts on this work. If everybody's ears are listening. So what is that one thing that you want to make sure that people walk away knowing so that they can take advantage of that, as soon as they stop listening, that they can really take that home with them? What would that be?
Yeah, I think that having the life that you want is totally possible. If I can do it, you can do it. And I think that that's part of our really innate right as a human being. So it's possible. And if you feel that calling, if you feel that nudge, if you feel that you're in a stuck place, do the work. Do the work and get help if you need to. I spent thousands of dollars hiring coaches, doing seminars, getting healings, all of that. I didn't get to this just like that. I did the work. So it's like, follow that call and look within, do the work, and you'll get there. And it'll be so amazing.
I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I know that you were kind enough to offer to kind of take people one step further. So why don't you tell them a little bit about your gift and how they can reach you and stay connected and learn more about this work that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So the gift is my 5 keys to 5 emotional intelligence keys to life and business mastery. And that's a free download. They can go to www.youreq.info. So youreq.info.
And we'll put that in the comments so everybody don't, if you don't have a pen, yeah.
Right? And then if you want to get in contact with me, the best way actually is to go to Facebook and look up my free private mentoring group called Emotional Money Mastery. I do free coaching there every week. So if you're even just dabbling into this work or curious, you can go and request to be added, and you'll get to join the group in there. And there's a bunch of insights from quantum. We talk about quantum physics, emotional intelligence, neurolinguistic programming, manifestation, the universal laws, everything in there to give you the tools to start using in your life on your own, to start really doing this work and mastering this work.
I love it. Awesome. And of course, everybody who's ever listened to me goes, yes, quantum physics. Now you know why Micaela is here. That is like so up my alley. I love it. And I'm grateful that you took the time to come and share with us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I love it. So please, everybody, follow the links. Make sure you're following Micaela. And, one of the other things that I wanted to tap into, because I know that's a big piece of what you're doing, is your Global Women Network. Mm-hmm. And what I loved about that, and, again, we'll make sure we have the links here, and I wanted to just give it a shout out in that today, this world that we live in is global. And I just love that you were already ahead of the game before we got into a place where people are realizing we have to be more virtual and we have to reach out across the oceans, if you will. So thank you so much for everything you do. Thank you for being here. And to you guys who are watching and listening, thank you very much for watching. I am Lia Dunlap, the Oracle on Purpose, and this is the Oracle on Purpose podcast. We'll see you next time. Thanks again. Remember, you are here on purpose. Thanks for tuning in to the Oracle on Purpose show.
If you found value in this episode, we'd appreciate you leaving a comment. Also, you can subscribe and ring the bell if you haven't yet. If you'd like to get clear on your highest vision and next steps, go to oracleonpurpose.com. See you next week.